And I think we're live.
Awesome.
David, thank you for being here.
No, I'm stoked to be here. As I was telling you, it's been a total pleasure following you and coming across you online, and just you're so authentic. So I'm very excited to be here and be chatting with you.
Yeah, no, I looked at your Instagram story this morning and I saw you got your training in. I'm like, wake up every morning. I'm like, it never fails. It's like 10 miles in, your face is like drenched with sweat. I'm laying in bed at like 7 a.m. and I'm like, oh, all right. Well, I got to get up and do something. That's actually, I think that's how I found you initially on your page. You were doing 100 days of 5K. So was that 100 days in a row?
Yeah, it was 100. So it was a 5K a day every day for 100 days in a row. It's actually funny you mentioned this. I get a lot of feedback, not just from my wife, but from my coworkers. Like, every one of your videos, you're drenched in sweat. Do you ever do a video where you're not like soaked in sweat? But that's kind of like when I'm in my zone, when I'm in the moment and I'm just like feeling it. But it's always like post workout or something at some ridiculous hour. But yeah, it was before the marathon training, it was doing a 5K a day every day for 100 days. Yeah.
So what motivated you to do that?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I actually came across another guy named Judah Peralta. I saw him doing the challenge. I was like, my first thought was like, damn, that sounds like really tough. And I'm a personal advocate of like just empowerment, and that we can do anything we want to do in our lives if we put our mind to it and all that good stuff. So I kind of caught myself and I was like, I literally caught myself thinking, I don't know if I could do that. That's a 5K every single day for 100 days straight. So I just woke up one morning and it was crazy. It was some weird spiritual, like, just boom, woke up 4:44, literally 4:44 in the morning with the thought of like, you're doing it and you're starting it today. If I could explain it better, I would, but I was like, all right, well, I'm going to do this. So I locked in, and I've always, I know running's really great for you. And I kind of fell out of my running the past few years. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to jump in. I'm going to give it a shot. And posting it on social media was effective because it kind of held me accountable to put it up there every single day. And that was my motivation, was just to prove to myself that I could do it, do that every single day. It turned out not to be as much of a physical thing as it was a mental thing. And it was a really interesting experience. And I would say one of the craziest things about that challenge is right about 30 to 45 Ks in, the running became a really powerful form of meditation for me. Like, I would get in this zone and just be able to visualize my day, and I was so much more effective all day. I would see what I wanted to create and I'd get all these new ideas. So it just became necessary for the impact of my life, like halfway through, which led into, the marathon training.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. So, did you see like a tangible point, and that you just kind of answered that question, a tangible point of like when, because I feel like when we're starting new habits, I actually read this book, part of it, not all of it, but on how important habits are, because when we don't have habits, or we don't have a schedule, or we don't have a routine, then we're expending all of this energy forward to kind of overcome that resistance to start doing the new thing that we want to do. So there's always kind of that period in the beginning of trying to do something new where there's a lot of resistance that you literally need to overcome every single day. And I feel like that's where a lot of people get stuck. It's hard to overcome that resistance over and over and over. So before getting to that meditative space, they just give up. I've tried so many new little morning routines where I feel great, like, the first couple days or the first week, but then, I don't get to the flow state fast enough. We're like a society of instant gratification. And then, you just give up and try something new. So it's interesting that you say that you said what, 30, 40 in, you kind of felt that flow and it almost integrated into your routine.
Yeah. So, man, I am such a huge advocate of habits. I literally run habits are the foundation of your life, and humans, like, we're all creatures of habit. Like, the reality is that we're going to create habits whether we decide to control them or not. We're just habitual creatures. That's how our mind works. We create habits, we create routines, but your habits end up being the foundation for the quality of your life, because your habits directly affect your decision making, and your decisions create the life that you're living. So habits are essential. And what I train a lot of people that I've like personally mentored or like professionally trained, habits is like a foundational part of what I train them on, because it doesn't matter if you have the best coach or mentor ever. If you don't start creating daily powerful habits, it's going to be, I don't like to talk in absolutes, like you won't be effective, but it's going to be so much harder to be effective or impactful if you don't have these habits, or at least it was for me. So one of the key elements to creating a habit, whatever habit it is you want to create, is your why behind it, which I know it sounds cliche. I'm not a fan of cliches, but it's true. You need to like really define what it is. Why is it you want to create this habit? Is it you want to be more impactful throughout your day? You want to, be the best you can for your whatever significant other, your business, health, whatever the reason is, whatever the why is, really outlining it and writing it down. And yeah, that was super important for me, because the hardest days in the 5K day wasn't getting up in the morning. It was the ones where I slacked, didn't do it in the morning, got done with my day. I was exhausted. And it was like 11:15 at night. And I realized, oh, I really don't want to go do this. But really defining your why and being actionable. And there's, what is it, like 7 days to actually create the repetition of a new habit. And then
what ranges, I've heard like
yeah,
days, I've heard like meditations up to like 60 to 90 days. I think it depends on many factors, but how would you say, like, so I hear you on the why. I actually wrote a post on this last night on like the food addiction that I went through.
yes, yep.
Yeah, so like I feel like I was really deep in food addiction for many years, and it wasn't until I started asking myself why was I doing the things I was doing that I could actually I finally made a change. But I think there's how would you explain the bridge between asking yourself why and defining your why, but then turning that into actionable items? Because I feel like so many people at least have a general understanding of their why. It's like, why do you want to eat healthier? Because you want to feel better. Or why do you want to do X, Y, and Z? And I mean, maybe you don't have a solid understanding of your why, but then it's turning the why into actionable items. And I feel like that's where the big gap is for people. People don't understand how to do that, or what they need to do that.
Right. So there's a lot of variables that go into play there. But once you define your why, definitely taking action is a big part of that. Um, I think, at least in my case, I've seeked out mentors. I feel like it's hard to do anything on your own and figure everything out on your own. We all don't have this figured out. So seeking out mentors and asking advice from people that have been there, or look at what it is you're trying to create. What do you want to create? Figure out someone that has created it and figure out the steps that they had to take to do that. But that's, just defining your why and then taking action is definitely an essential part of it.
I think David Goggins would disagree, right? That guy does like everything on his own, but no.
Oh my gosh, I know, yeah.
I'm with you. I typically do very well with an accountability partner. That's actually why I always knew I wanted to make videos and talk, but when I was doing my YouTube channel, just doing videos myself, it was challenging because I didn't feel as much motivation as I do now to have like these great conversations with people and have them planned and have the other person on the other end also excited and have that layer of accountability. So I'm with you on that.
And just one thing that just came to me there on that note too. I think two things are really essential for it, and it's taking a step back and powerful self-awareness of like, what am I doing and how is this impacting my life? And two is radical self-responsibility, which is a tough thing for a lot of people. Like, I'm not jumping ahead, but with stuff in my past, I was in a vicious, horrible cycle for a long time. And when I got down to it, it's because I wasn't really taking self-responsibility in like my actions. It's so easy to like, in our society conditions us to like, it's easy to make excuses. It's easy to give blame. It's easy to take the comfortable route. But like when you become aware, like I need to make these changes, and then you pair that with like radical self-responsibility of no one's going to make these changes except for me. And if I don't make these changes, they're just not going to happen. I think those two things are really essential. You can have the best why in the world, but if you keep falling into those mindset habits of like excuses or comfortability, short-term gratification, it's all short-term gratification, which it's this battle, because that's literally what we're like ingrained into from the time we're freaking 3 or 4 years old and can think a thought. It's short-term gratification. So it's not easy. It's not easy, but it can be done.
Yeah, I was actually talking to my husband yesterday about the instant gratification thing because
Mm, huge.
I feel like if you just delay gratification as much as you possibly can in your life with the little pleasures, that's what I feel like I've been doing a lot. And it's interesting. We'll get into this in a little bit, but as I've removed a lot of the short-term pleasures that I used to give into for, instant dopamine or instant relief, I actually find more and more that I'm clearing this like mental congestion that I felt my whole life. And
Yes.
I'm realizing that I actually have a hard time connecting with people. That's what I'm realizing at the core of my being. And I'm like, interesting how that really relates into addiction and all that stuff. So we were getting,
Powerful. That
yeah,
is awesome.
yeah, it's been a crazy journey just realizing this, but the instant gratification thing, and also what you were talking about with, I feel like we have a lot of people, I've been in this state myself, I still am with some things that just kind of fall into a victim state. And it's kind of like this poor me, like I want other people to do this for me, my poor past, my terrible upbringing, I don't have the tools, I'm never going to be able to figure it out. It's this negative self-talk that keeps your power away. Like it keeps you from understanding your power that you have to change your own life. And you said that term radical self responsibility is basically just accepting that no one else is going to do it for you, like you said.
100%. That statement's so powerful. Like whoever hears this needs to replay what you just said because that's powerful. And I like to really, I'm like obsessed with the mind and how the mind works. I was a psych major. I did undergrad research on theories of personalities. I just love the mind. And when I dig into I like to ask why people do the things they do a lot. And if you dig into, there's two parts to this. One, people create cycles. They create cycles. But if what does everything start with? It starts with a thought. And if you you hear all the time, be positive, don't be negative, right? You hear that all the time. But if you dig into why, it's because it creates a ripple effect. A negative, you take the action. Think of the action you're about to do, whatever the thing is, right? You have to have either a negative or positive thought. The problem is, if you give into a negative thought, the negative thought leads to a limiting belief. The limiting belief leads to a low quality action of what you're going to do. The low quality action will have a better chance of leading to a low quality result. And then it creates that cycle of negativity. If you can, the moment that the difference between good and great in whatever it is you want to do is the moment you have that negative thought, you can change it to a positive that'll create an empowering thought and that'll create a high quality action and has a better chance of creating a high quality result. And then it's the same exact thing. It's just, it all starts in here, and that's why, not to jump backwards at all, but when this is why mornings are, at least for me, they're imperative to my entire life, getting up early, because what I'm doing to my mind is I'm making my mind do something incredibly uncomfortable that I never want to do. I never literally wake up at 4. I'm like, great, 4 a.m. I'm excited to be up. Like I do it, but I don't like it. But I know that now, whatever happens throughout the day, I'm going to make the harder, more delayed gratification decision, the uncomfortable decision that's going to be better for me, my business, my life, my spouse, whatever. I'm going to make the harder decision that's going to be more geared towards delayed gratification, and I'll be able to control my mindset better too by starting out with something uncomfortable that's good for me.
Yeah, we're a society that's very conditioned to be comfortable. And I think you really hit it there with the
100%.
doing something that makes you uncomfortable. I really strive to do this as much as I can. And I sometimes find myself wanting to I feel like sometimes I seek too many uncomfortable things. And like my life is kind of like, I don't know that I have a great balance with that yet because I'm in this period of speaking my truth in relationships. And a lot of my relationships have dissolved or jumping out of a plane. That was actually awesome. I did that on my wedding.
That's awesome.
We did that on our wedding morning.
What?
Yeah, it was
That is so
yeah,
cool.
it was pretty crazy. But the whole concept of thoughts and
Mm,
positive versus negative thoughts and just it's so intriguing that we give so much power to negative thoughts. Well, first of all, it's intriguing that we even give the power to thoughts, because thoughts are simply that, thoughts. I find myself getting so wrapped up in the concept that thoughts are truth, which not all of them are. And even the positive ones, like sometimes, you can have ego inflating thoughts that are just
Yep.
boosting yourself up. And, not to say that that's not bad, but is that good if your ego is inflating with these thoughts? So I feel like that's where meditation comes into play, of being able to see yourself outside of thoughts. For me, I've been wrapped up in hypochondria and anxiety and a lot of bad cycles of thoughts. And sometimes the most powerful part in the cycle is when I can just sit there and take myself outside of them and just observe them and not even deem them positive or negative. Just say they're there. I'm not
Yep.
even going to put weight to them.
Yep. Absolutely. It's that what always resonated with me heavily in meditation is seeing it as a cloud passing by.
Headspace? Did you do Headspace?
No, Insight Timer, actually. I
Oh,
love Insight Timer, but I've heard great things about Headspace. I just
yeah.
Insight Timer. But yeah, that totally resonates. And that's literally what I do with meditation. You just see it as a cloud pass. Everyone has their own thing that they do, but that's what really helps me. You're absolutely right. Just observe it, become aware of it, no judgment upon it, and allow it to pass.
Yeah, there's little things I like to do too. Like we live by not super close, but we live close to a train. You can hear
Hmm.
the train. And what's interesting, I've started observing myself with this train. I love trains. They're very mesmerizing to me. I love being at the front of a line stopped by a train and watching a train, because there's something about the powerful presence that just stops you in your tracks, and it just comes by and you're forced to sit there and watch it. You can't go anywhere. It's like it's a moment of meditation for me.
That's awesome.
And what I've noticed though lately is when I'm in high stress period, so the train comes by, I would say once every couple hours, probably like 4 or 5 times a day plus. And when I'm in really high stress periods in my life, I don't hear the train during my day. I don't hear it. I just don't. But when I'm slower and more mindful, I hear the train. And it's such a simple concept, but it's like I'll hear the sound and I'm like, the train. And I kind of just sit there and I listen. And it's all these little things, little subtleties in life that I feel like kind of bring us back to the moment, because we so easily get just wrapped up in the do, go, 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 go. Like, and we lose sight of what's right in front of us.
100%. I literally have "Be Here Now" tattooed on my forearm, like as a reminder. Literally, just no matter what's, because anxiety is created from thinking about the past that can't be changed. And what is it? Worry is creating what conspiracy theories against yourself in the future that isn't there yet. It's all about being
And
here in the moment. Yeah, absolutely. So that's a great point. Yep.
I've actually heard a good thing, that it's depression is when you're stuck in the past, and anxiety is when you're stuck scenario building the future.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Jay Shetty had a really good comment about worry. He said, "Worry." I hope I don't screw this up. It's worry is like walking around on a sunny day with the umbrella out.
Yes. That's
Literally.
you talk a lot about like reprogramming, and you talk a lot about, and I'm personally very interested in the subconscious mind. I'm actually having, you'll probably love this episode, I'm having a hypnotherapist come on a
Nice.
couple weeks, and she's going to talk about how important the subconscious mind is, and how important it is to clear all of that congestion from old traumas, old pain, hardship, and things. Because what it is, from what I understand, is it's sitting dormant within us constantly, and then it's basically clogging us to where we can't get into that free flow space of more creativity, because we're just so bogged down every single day with stress and congestion. And I'm going to have her on, and she's going to talk about how to clear the subconscious mind with hypnotism, which is really interesting. But you talk a lot about reprogramming the subconscious mind, and you seem very passionate about that. So, what work have you done? What research have you done? Or what message do you have around that? Because I feel like that's a very powerful concept.
Yeah, so part of a business that I run right now, one of the main business, I get people from all different socioeconomic backgrounds. I mean, people that have no experience, ton of experience, whatever. I take whoever and I teach them really powerful mindfulness and sales techniques, like really powerful techniques. But and I bring that up because what I deal with on a daily basis literally is helping. The only way you can be successful in something that I've found anyway, that is like high risk, that is a lot of connection with people, is that positive reprogramming. And so many people I've come across have just this, are unaware of the subconscious reprogramming that's holding them back. And I think it was Stanford University that had the study that finally proved that our subconscious mind runs 95% of our day, which is crazy. Our subconscious literally runs 95% of our day. The good news is that you can reprogram that. So you have a conscious mind and you have a subconscious mind, right? So what most people don't realize is everything you're putting into your conscious mind is seeping into your subconscious. The music you listen to, the podcasts you listen to, whatever you put into your mind is programming your subconscious mind. I've found there's a few pretty powerful ways. And again, I got to give credit my wife. I've learned so much from her. I knew nothing about this stuff before her, and it's been so transformative in my life and for some of the people that I've mentored. You hear affirmations all the time, right? You've heard of affirmations and stuff. They can be powerful, but there's a piece to affirmations that most people miss, and that's the feeling. So like, the morning, let's say, I'll give you an example of a morning routine that's really powerful for subconscious reprogramming. Okay, here's an example. Wake up, and this is what I did. It was like team builder exercises, totally optional for my company, but I'll have them wake up and I'll say, look, I'm going to be at Mount Bunnell. It's this really high mountain at 5 a.m. Meet me there. And like 8 people will show up there. We do like hills and mountain runs for like 30 minutes up and down. So their mentalities broke down. They're physically pushing themselves. They're doing things that are uncomfortable. All of this thing that is just good for your body and your mind. And then right after that, we'll roll right into a meditation at the sunrise. So you have all this nature coming in, you have all this positivity. They feel good because they just did something well. All this positive, all this stuff that is happening intensely that's different and uncomfortable in their conscious mind going to their subconscious. Then a calming meditation to calm their thoughts. And then right after that, write down 10 things they're grateful for. Just get that gratitude going. And the reason why, you hear great gratitude all the time. I literally have it tattooed on my arm because it's so powerful because of the feeling it creates. Okay, you can write affirmations till you're blue in the face. If you're not feeling it, it doesn't matter. This is why gratitude, when you truly think of what you're grateful for in your life, whatever it is, if you're truly grateful for it, you're going to create that. It's the fastest way to create that good feeling. So I have them write what they're grateful for, why they're grateful for it. And then affirmations of what they want to create in their life. And again, my wife actually leads a lot of this. So huge credit to her on all of this. And I learned all of this kind of stuff from her, affirmations that they want to create in their life, and then setting their intention, writing that down, writing what is your intention for the day. So all of this stuff in the morning, first thing in the morning, it's constant positive reprogramming into their conscious mind and starts to seep to their subconscious. But it takes repetition. It's just like anything. A mind is like a muscle. When you work out, you tear your muscle and it grows back stronger. The mind does the same thing, but that's one example of a morning routine that has been powerful, that I've literally seen people reprogram their subconscious mind by doing these morning routines, getting it started right then all day. They manage their emotions better. They're more mindful throughout their day. They start to think more positively instead of getting into the negative. So there's a lot of ways to, and I have everyone do this corny chant in the beginning of every sales meeting. That's like, I am worthy. I am worthy of abundance. I'm worthy of success. I am loved. I am worthy. Like I have literally every day, everyone stand up and says this entire chant at the beginning of the day, because whatever's going on outside of work needs to be left outside of work. At least my reps know when they come in, they're going to get an hour of training and positivity and empowerment and these things that are just going to be good for their mind. So there's all these little, I could go on forever, but there's all these little techniques to reprogram your subconscious mind. But the foundational thing to understand with that is, what are you putting into your conscious mind every day? Because your brain is like this super high advanced machine that whatever you put into your subconscious will reprogram your subconscious.
Yeah, I relate to what you said about the affirmations, because it's like there have been so many times where I've like tried to tell myself things and I'm like, I am, I am worthy. I am this, I'm that. But like when you don't
You
feel it,
feel like crap.
when you feel like crap,
Right.
it's almost more not dangerous isn't the right word, but it's almost more confusing and conflicting when you're like telling yourself one thing and then you don't feel that, and it's like, am I lying to myself? This I just it doesn't it never really rang as a good practice to me. But what you said about the whole example of the morning routine. So when you do the exercise, like what is that doing? So you're saying you're breaking these like, metaphorically breaking these people down. They're uncomfortable. They're in a state where, their body's being challenged, their mind is being challenged. So what is that then, like what is that doing on a conscious level? Like is it clearing mental congestion to then open up the mind to better receive positive things, or what is it like, why is that so important?
So there's a metaphysical answer and there's a physical answer, I think, anyway. What I've found, and again, I'm just telling you in my experience, what I found on a metaphysical level, working out, especially intensely, for some reason or another, I just get such clarity and such, I mean, messages and just vision and just something. There's something powerful about intensely working out. That's great. On the other end of it, you're absolutely right. Let's say because a lot of the people that I get that come here are just not confident in themselves yet. I'm giving them something tangibly to feel good about themselves about. I'm giving them something, I'm making them do something where they can say, you know what, I did that. I'm proud of myself for that. I have something, because for you to feel good about you, for you to have that good feeling, you got to have confidence in yourself in some way. And if the confidence isn't there, okay, well, let's give you something to be confident about. You woke up at freaking 5 a.m. when 98% of the world is asleep and you did something freaking tough. Be proud of yourself. I did this whole speech at the end of it, and now they have something to hang on to. Now they can start to build that confidence up. They can start to feel good about themselves. They can create that good feeling. So it's a bit of a confidence booster and something tangibly they can hang on to, as well as there's just something powerful about getting that great workout in early in the morning that just makes your mind so receptive
Yeah,
and clarity.
a lot of people say that. A lot of people have, I mean, even myself, like I have a really rocky past with working out, but when I do find the strength, like the mental strength to work out, I usually feel better. It's actually a weird thing for me because
You're in CrossFit, weren't you?
I was like, I was upset. I was OCD. Like I mean,
Okay.
I would have diarrhea every single morning. I
Oh
wanted to get
shoot.
the best time in the gym. Other girls playfully would be like, I'm coming in to beat your time. I started competing. Like I
Wow, that's tough.
no, it was tough when, like, I mean, a workout would be released, like, there's different workout names, and if it was a workout I was nervous for, like, I couldn't sleep the night before, I would wake up, I would have, like, diarrhea all morning, I would be so nervous, my heart would be, like, racing, and I just was so hard on myself, like, so hard on myself. It wasn't really a competition against me, it was a competition against everybody else, and
Ugh.
then I started working full time. And then when I realized I couldn't give all the effort I was giving before because of my job, I just completely quit. And then at that same time, I actually developed, I had a couple fainting episodes. I developed
Oh no.
hypochondria. And a lot of, I mean, the fainting was just from dehydration and breaking my toes. So it's like I didn't have an actual medical condition, but it set me off into a wave of hypochondria and just obsessing about my body. And then I worked at a hospital at that time too. So I was seeing this whole new world that I had never seen before of people dying and this trauma and chronic illnesses and crazy illnesses that you wouldn't even you wouldn't even imagine, but they're out there. People like unable to stand up because they'll pass out, people with their
Mm.
heart that can fail at any time, people that can are stuck in a bed for the rest of their life, giving me all this life advice like go do the things that you love because I'll never be able to walk again.
Jeez.
I'll never be able to fish with my son again. Like, please go outside and enjoy the sun. And I was like balls deep in anxiety. So I'm like traumatized. So I became a hypochondriac and very fixated on my body. So when I woke up to my body, I became conscious to my body and the sensations of my body, my heart rate, my breathing, nausea, all that stuff. What I've been realizing lately is I feel like I am, like, in a metaphysical way, like I'm a soul that just learned what her vessel is.
Oh, that's
And
so cool.
And it's scary. I feel like a baby.
Yeah.
I feel like a baby, like just learning, like, this is a heart. Like when I eat, I'm like, okay, like food went into my stomach. Like, what is my stomach? Like, where's my food? Like, I'm learning
Right.
processes of my body. But unfortunately, right now, when I work out, because I took a like couple year hiatus, when I work out, my heart starts racing. I've never really consciously worked out. So when my heart starts racing, I have an unhealthy, improper association with that my heart should just be a little bit elevated, but I'm like, oh my gosh, I have a heart problem. I'm going to faint or I'm going to pass out because I saw all those people at the hospital like that. So I have this improper association that oftentimes, if I push myself past like 30 to 40%, I'll get sent into a panic attack almost every time. And so I still put myself in those situations, but I have to kind of mentally prepare and get myself squared away to potentially face something. So that's exhausting. So I don't always do it every single day. So for me, it's like, it's a really weird time right now, just trying to figure out what.
That's super self-awareness though. Wow. I feel like you need somehow to work out with a distraction. If you could have like some kind of distraction workout partner, I don't know, something that'll keep you distracted from yourself while you're
Well,
working out.
music usually did that. I love
Yeah.
music. I can
Yeah.
fall into the music, but the body symptoms seem to just override anything. It's if there's
Yeah.
any sort of, hypochondriacs. I don't like using like blanket labels because I feel like that keeps people in a box, but I've just
Right.
used it for so long. But
Sure.
hypochondriacs typically, you know, we don't understand that a healthy person has body symptoms. Like a healthy person has nausea from time to time, like a health, like, like
Yeah.
ebbs and flows in the body. So anytime I get some sort of imbalance, I'm like sent in a whirlwind. But where I was actually going with this, I kind of went on a tangent there, but I was going to ask you, I've actually been thinking lately, like I've been so focused on, it's like identifying the negative parts of ourselves, like identifying our self-limiting beliefs, identifying like my insecurities, my self-limiting beliefs, identifying all these things, knowing them. And then I always felt like I've tried to like rid myself of them. Like I've always like, let's just get rid of them, let's replace them with positivity. But now I've been thinking more along the lines of like, I don't know if that's the answer, because I feel like a better approach would be having awareness for what your programs are at the core, and almost just allowing them to be there, and then introducing more positivity. Like I feel like we get stuck in this, like, I just want to get rid of anxiety. If only I could get rid of depression. If only I could get rid of these thoughts. Like, let me just get rid of everything. But instead, it's like, let me just see that they're there. Let me acknowledge these monsters, these beasts, these demons within me. Let me almost just walk alongside them and just sit there and know that they're there. And then also flood myself with positivity. I feel like that's more of the answer.
Yeah, that's really powerful. And it's interesting you say that because, that is something where what I believe is that what you focus on is what is going to continuously be created in your life. So a lot of people do focus on, just like you're saying, what is the negative, identify it. And again, not to jump ahead, but that's kind of why that's one of the reasons why they go about addiction so wrong nowadays and stuff like that. Because if you focus on the negative parts and you focus on the limiting beliefs, where you focus, energy goes there. And I'm personally am also a big advocate of the law of attraction, which states that what you focus on is what more of what you create, what you attract into your life. It's my firm belief, and what I've experienced in my life is your thoughts create, but your feelings attract. Okay, so your thoughts create, and then but the feelings attract what is into your life. But so yeah, thoughts create, feelings attract. So the reason I say that, whenever I think you're absolutely right that you just acknowledge it, you acknowledge that for what it is, and there's something about going with the flow and just being like, all right, I'm not going to like force this to be gone because it is what it is. But I can put my focus on what are the good things about me? What are the things I'm really good at? What are the things that light my fire? Where are my passions at? What do I enjoy doing? Focus more on the positives, and then your mind goes to the positives, and I feel like you attract more of those good positive things. Not saying those negative things won't be there, but what you might find is it's not that it won't be there, it'll just diminish in your world. They may be there, just not as much. You're focusing so much on what you're trying to create, your platform, your life, your whatever your thing is. You're focusing on that so much that kind of becomes your world. And it's not that who knows, maybe the negatives will go away, maybe they'll always be there. But a huge part of it, I think, too, is asking yourself, what can you control and what can you not control? Because so many people spend so much excessive time focusing on things out of their control. Like, if it's out of your control, what's the point of focusing on it? But if it's something that's in your control, then take the most actionable step you can towards, doing what's best for you. But I think you're right on point with that, focusing, being aware that it's there, and then focusing more on the good and what it is you're trying to create and what makes you feel good, those kind of things, and stuff that's good for you.
See, what about the people that are stuck, that are so deep in bad patterns? Like, I feel like there's so many thoughts or concepts that are easily thrown around by people, right? It's like, focus on the positive, of course,
Right.
like, don't, break patterns, like all these things that are just so easily said. But for people that are just so stuck, I feel like it's so hard to see outside of yourself sometimes. I've been there. So I always look for like practical advice, and the only thing that I can think of off the top of my head right now in kind of thinking through this of like how to get past those deep times is like, you almost have to jolt yourself, or like jolt your life, or make a big change of some sort, and like change the game completely. So whether it's like, I'm going to start running every single day, or I'm going to move out of the city, I'm going to start a brand new life somewhere. But then at the same time, you run into problems with that, because then you don't want to just be reckless. You don't want to just keep running away from things and making all these rash decisions, and then, putting yourself through that. So what practical advice would you have for someone that's really stuck in a pattern, in a deep groove? And you can say, focus on things that only you can control. You can say, only be positive. But for someone that's stuck, that doesn't do anything.
Yeah, yeah. It's so funny you say that. What you're describing is exactly, I wrote about this a long time ago. You need a catalyst. You need a powerful catalyst for change. Like, if you're stuck in something, it's not just gonna change for you. You need some kind of catalyst. What I've found for people that I've worked with, and I'm not trying to simplify it, but it does all go back to the mind. And what I found is, and there may be better ways, I can just tell you in my experience, it's establishing and sticking to a powerful morning routine. Like, if whatever is going on, like, literally, I'll give you an example. I have reps. I have people that are just stuck in really tough situations. They're just constantly in the cycle of negativity. I'll sit down with them. I'll tell them, get a journal, get something to write with and write on, because there's something powerful about writing things out and writing your thoughts out. Because I think we all don't do enough writing, and there's something powerful about writing. And I'll say, I'll have a conversation with them about what it is they have going on, what it is that they want to create. And I'll ask them, like, how bad do they want to make that change? Most of them say pretty darn bad. I'm like, okay, here is your answer to here's what I feel is your answer. And it's just this creating a powerful morning routine and sticking to it for an elongated period of time. Because what I've found in my life, and for some, and again, I'm not trying to say a blanket statement, this works for everybody. I'm just giving an example of what I've found that works, is when someone wants the change bad enough, they will do whatever it takes to make the change. The problem is, most people have to get to a pretty shitty point before they want it bad enough to make the change. So they might kind of want to make the change. They might want to make the change, but they want sleep more than they want to make the change. Like, and that's what I found with my reps. And I love them to death. I've dealt with people, all kinds of different backgrounds, everything. But what it comes down to is, how bad do you actually want that change? And it goes back to radical self-responsibility, because I can write out a program that'll give you a freaking month of 4 or 5 days a week. Do this here, get this journal. I want you to write this stuff out. I can give all the tools in the world. And it's something I've struggled with as a leader. Like one of the biggest, I've learned so much running a business. One of the things I struggled with is trying to think, I said, I actually literally want their changes and their success sometimes more than they do. And I struggle with that because I get emotionally attached to wanting to help them.
You get fixated on the outcome instead
I'm
of
like,
just,
what the hell? Why aren't you doing this? You said you want to freaking change, do it. And they're like, well, I just wanted to get some sleep. I'm like, then you don't freaking want to change. Like, I don't mean to sound cold, but I'm like, I'm giving you, like, if I really wanted to change, if you hand me something that says, do this and you will change, then at least do it. And if you don't change, come tell me I'm an asshole and I'm wrong.
just try it, right?
But do it. Like, here's your freaking answer. But it's radical self-responsibility. Like, I found a powerful morning routine, writing stuff out, really going internal, asking yourself some deep questions, and following a powerful morning routine will start to create changes in your mind, which will create changes in your reality. But if they don't, and it's so easy for I've had people in and out all the time say they want the change. Some do. I would say 15 to 20%. That's probably being generous. To say they want the change actually are willing to do whatever it takes to get it. And those that are willing to do whatever it takes, they make the change.
That's pretty powerful, actually. I relate to two things in that. One is hitting rock bottom. And I
Yeah.
feel like a lot
Yeah.
of people need to kind of get to that rock bottom
Yep.
place. Like, it, as weird as it sounds, like I always wanted to change my diet. But it took like a 3-year journey of really hitting some lows with my emotions and my like understanding what I was doing, like crying, eating a pizza, like not understanding why I was so fucking low and down and feeling miserable, and like going through so many iterations of that to finally understand, like, I really have to make this change. It wasn't even that I wanted to. It's like it was no longer like, for the longest time I wanted to,
That's
but
powerful. Yes.
then it was like, I need to, for this, like, for me to survive. Like, I was dying just with the addiction with food. It was so it had so much power over me. I felt like it was sucking me dry every single day. And I would constantly give in, and I would be like, why am I giving in? Like, I didn't understand. And I think the second thing to piggyback off of that is radical self-responsibility. I'm totally going to use that term from now on. I love that, but it's almost to the flip side of that is not making a radical, like, if you're going to make a routine, don't make a crazy 10-step new morning routine that's ridiculous, that consists of all these new things that you don't know about, and then hold yourself to that every single day. Sure, the
Yes.
David Goggins people in the world could probably do it. There's always outliers. But for the average person that's trying to make a change, I have been guilty of this so much. All of a sudden I'm like, I'm going to change everything. I'm going to work out every single day. I'm going to stretch every single day. I'm going to learn the handstands. I'm going to learn the splits. I'm going to eat this, this, and this. I'm not going to eat this. I'm going to drink 100 ounces of water. I'm going to take my dog for, 1 to 2 mile walk. I'm going to hang. And then it's like 0 to 100. I burn myself out in 2 to 3 days. And then I'm like, I'm a failure again.
So that's so interesting you say that. No, so that's oh God, I'm such on the same wavelength there. So you're right. And one of the keys to that, when I give them a morning routine or I tell them do this, do that, is like trying to jump around here. One of the tools I tell my reps to do is create your perfect day. Write out what you feel, take away all excuses, take away all external factors. What would your perfect day look like? Hour by hour, just curious, write it out. It's good for self-awareness. Now, with the morning routines, with stuff like that, there's an essential piece of not going so hard on yourself if you mess it up. Like, or if you miss a day, or if you miss 2 days, just jump back on. It's okay. Like, the point is, we're all trying to figure this out. No one has everything figured out. We're all going to screw it up, and we're still going to keep screwing it up. The point, nobody's even close to perfect. It's okay to mess it up. Just get back on. But you need to eliminate your expectations. So if you have all these high expectations of yourself, of perfection, you're setting yourself up for failure, 100%.
Expectations, man, that rules my
Oh,
life. Expectations
gotta
and
kill them. Gotta get rid of them.
there's the space between expectations and reality, and I feel like that's where all the shit lies. The stress, the just hardship, and because you put these like people put expectations on them, and then when they don't meet them, it's weird. It's like it's almost like it never works out. People put expectations on themselves and then they don't meet them, and then they're like in pity party mode, right? Where it's like, fuck, like I'm a failure, I'm a loser.
Yep.
Or if you exceed them, then you almost have this inflated ego where you're like, yeah, like I did this and I exceeded
Literally,
expectations.
expectations are the worst. Yes, you're
It's like, get
absolutely
rid of
right.
them.
Absolutely right. I say that literally what you're saying, I say all the time running the business. Like literally, you're right. 100%. It's so powerful to understand that concept. It's powerful to understand it and then internalize it. Like that you're right on point. And when you internalize that, you can take the expectations thing into so many facets of your life. And if you start eliminating them, you won't be like saddened or let down if you don't do as well, and then you'll just be happy about whatever happens. You still obviously want goals and all that stuff, but just eliminate those expectations. That's awesome. That's exactly right.
A powerful part of meditation is just so many people think like, oh, when they're happy, it's like, let me just show my happiness and I'm so happy, but it's actually being mindful with the happiness too, and not going too overboard and getting too high on whatever you're doing, and then
Yep.
dropping. I'm going to take a quick second. I want to see if anybody, because I don't see anyone in the chat. Do you see anyone in the chat?
No, I
One.
see Ashley Rothstein.
Good job. You got the name right again. So if anybody's listening, that is how you pronounce my last name. People say it all of the time. They say Rothstein.
If you
Some
get
say
anything from this podcast, that's what you need to take away from it.
that's it. That's it. Just
That's
fast
it.
forward to this little clip. I'll do this as the little IG clip, just how to pronounce my
That's it. That's all.
yeah. So yeah, I don't see anyone here, but I didn't see anyone in chat last time, and I said there was like 25 people. So I'm really curious to see if I'm you know what? Hold on, let's see. Just taking a moment. No, this is chat. So bizarre. I guess I'll watch again and we'll see if I miss people again and I'll have to do more troubleshooting. But
Yeah, I one thing on your comment about that, it's gosh, I don't know who said it. There's a really great quote that's just resonates. It's that those who can master their emotions can master their actions, and those who master their actions can create their future. But it all comes down to managing your emotions. Not Jay Shetty has a good video on that. It's just basically not getting exactly what you said, not getting too high in excitement, not getting too low. It's there's one clinic that I run that's all about hills and valleys. Life is literally hills and valleys, no matter what. You're never going to get to some point where it's all just figured out and then you're just happy all the time. Never. It doesn't matter. You can have money, all the things,
there's
whatever.
no finish line. Like David Goggins always says, there's
There's
no
not.
finish line. And
There's
I think
not.
people are looking for that finish line. It's like retirement. I just get to woo, like, and I'm not really a huge believer advocate of retirement. I personally want to be working my whole life towards something.
150%. I couldn't imagine just not doing anything. Like
So I like,
I'm
oh,
always going to want to be impacting something or doing something.
yeah, I feel like, retirement is I'm not I want to be doing something. But yeah, and I feel like that's an issue with the political climate these days. I don't really want to get too much into politics because it's always like, like the back.
Cognitive dissonance. Cognitive
Oh
dissonance.
God, I know. But the problem with a lot of issues that are being discussed today is they're so heavily based on emotion.
Yeah.
And a lot of people can't have conversations about certain things. I still have my hot topics. I try to be aware of myself when I'm talking about them. But some people can't even have conversations without emotion. And then people get so worked up and so angry. And then you're not able to take yourself out of that scenario and really just talk about the issues at hand and proper solutions in problems in politics, in relationships. There's this constant heavy emotion that's being put forth, I think, that really clouds judgment. And there's so much power, and I think that's why I've been reading is it try Tools of Titans by Tim Ferriss.
Oh,
And
nice.
he's a successful podcaster, and he has interviewed so many people,
Oh,
like
yeah,
at
I
least
love it.
300-400 people. And what he did was he took like 200 or so of those people that he interviewed, and he basically outlined their top tools and tricks for success in their lives, morning routines, what they do with their businesses, what they do with their money, how they manage, like all this stuff. And he said pretty much across the board, the most successful people have some sort of daily meditation practice because it removes so much reactivity from their day ahead, from them being reactive in business conversations, reactive in personal conversations. And that's what so many people are. You see people walking around these days just fucking reacting to everything. Everybody's pissed off. Everybody's honking at each other. You know, you're taking your shit out on the cashier at the store. You're taking your shit out at the random person in the parking lot, honking at them. It's like, that's not anyone's truth, but we're all just so stuck in this reactive cycle that we don't get anywhere.
Yeah, it's you've ever heard of the backfire effect?
No.
It's really so. It's literally what you're talking about. So if I think it's basically another term for a cognitive dissonance, but it goes a little deeper. So if you grew up with like core values, certain core beliefs, and I come to you with anything that conflicts that core belief, your brain, literally, this is beyond your control. Your brain is going to see it as it's being attacked. So it puts up this, it literally sets off these neural pathways that thinks it's being attacked. It's going to see red and it's going to immediately lash out like it's being, it literally sets off similar brain wavelengths like you're being attacked. So no matter, so if I come to someone, if I come to you and you've always thought the color red is red and I'm telling you, no, the color red is blue, you're going to lash out. And it doesn't matter what kind of logic or facts or answers I give to you, you're never going to see it as that. And people just get caught up in the backfire effect. They actually found there's a way around it. Not that I have much hope for us as a unified people to ever get there, but the way around it is if I'm trying to have you understand my point of view before I bring that thing to you that conflicts what you think, I need to befriend you and tell you and figure out some way to make you feel like we're on the same team. I need to find some similarities that we have. We become friends. Then your brain will see us as similar, and then I can bring it up to you. But a key part of that is then I also have to be open to being wrong.
So wrong in the sense that,
Or incorrect. I have to be open to your point of view too.
oh,
So
I,
like, so
so you
I, if
be
I
open
if I
for
want to convince, yeah, if I want to convince you of something, I need to make friends with you and make you feel like we're on the same team, present the information to you, and also keep an open mind that my theory could be incorrect too.
I see. So then that's just like people with two different religions. Like if one person wants to explain their religion to the other, they also have to be willing to hear the other person talk
Mm-hmm.
about their religion and be open to those
Right.
possibilities instead of being like, here, I'm going to tell you what I think. Oh, and what you think is wrong.
All kinds of getting rid of ego and pride and jealousy and all that stuff that most people constantly can't get around. So
My damn ego, man.
I know it.
My LSD, this is actually probably a good transition. My LSD experience, I've only had one like profound experience. I've had a couple other little ones. Like I thought I was microdosing, but I was actually kind of like I had like a little minor trip. But yeah, when I was on LSD, I took 100 micrograms. I saw myself outside of my ego. I mean, I didn't have an ego death. I definitely saw my door and I was resisting it. I did not go there because it was really scary. Um, I don't know if I would have had a full ego death. I didn't take enough to have a full ego death, but I definitely saw a place that I could have went beyond any state that I know now, and I just didn't. I resisted it, but I saw myself outside of my ego. I saw myself. I saw like I wasn't Ashley when I was when I was tripping. I was I guess my soul. I don't know what you would want to call it, but I was like nothing but everything. And then I saw this persona of Ashley outside of that, and everything I do, why I do what I do, my bad patterns, why I judge people. And I saw that and it was just like, I'm like, wow, I do all that to protect myself. Just the ego is just protecting myself from pain, from judgment, from, isolation. Like, I even though I actually isolate myself, but it's very interesting how big our egos get just to protect ourselves. And I feel like the more pain that we're all in, the bigger our egos get, and the more we're trying to almost keep ourselves from people. But what we really need is connection.
Oh, that is literally a foundational statement of life. Like when you go to the root, and again, personal opinion here, but when you go to the root of so many issues, mental issues, anxiety, depression, addiction, whatever, it's connection. I thoroughly believe it's genuine connection with people. We as humans strive for real connection, authentic, no bullshit connection, like with other people, being authentic. We all have this deep connectedness within us, and we're all like at our core, I feel like we're all love at our core, under the conditioning, under all of the trauma, under what we've dealt with. We are, and it's just connection. That is such a powerful statement you just said. Yes, I totally agree.
That's perfect. Then why don't we go into your story
Yeah.
with addiction? You just gave me very high level details, so I really don't know much. What I basically know is you were kind of wrapped up in binge drinking, and you had some light psychedelic experimentation that kind of changed your awareness around your patterns and what you were doing, and just your thoughts on addiction and you know, connect the lack of connection. And you can get a little tangent here. I'm giving you permission.
Yeah, so it's interesting with this whole topic, and I'll tell you why it's interesting. Trying to think of how to wordsmith this. The way I grew up in my family, I love them all to death, all different, you know, all of them. And my family, wife's family, all. When you talk about um, the backfire effect and cognitive dissonance and stuff like that, psychedelics is a very fiery topic with a lot of people. You know, psychedelics, whether right or wrong, I don't feel a substance is good or bad. Like a knife, for instance. A knife can be used to do surgery and save someone's life, or it can be used to stab someone and kill someone. The knife itself isn't inherently good or bad. It's how it's used. I'm a little bit, I guess you can call it a black sheep of the family. And I've unfortunately had extremely severed ties from a lot of my close family because of my psychedelic experimentation that I was very transparent about. I grew up extremely conservative, extremely super right wing. That's all I knew. Grew up military family, brief time in the Marine Corps. You know, that's all I knew. That's all I grew up as. There was part of me that was always very, for some reason or other, interested in the mind and people and how it worked. So I took a very different path when I started studying psychology and I started getting into mind studies and meeting different people. So I say all that because when you bring up something like psychedelics, nowadays it's more accepted. And I think a big reason for that is I love maps. Have you heard of maps?
Yeah. Actually,
Yeah, they're doing something.
I don't know if you've heard of Adam Strauss. I actually met him in person.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I went to his mushroom cure, his show, and I
Mm-hmm.
was able to talk to him after the show. He's awesome, but he's actually now sponsored by.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. So Maps is doing some incredible work, and they're literally they're helping with addiction, they're helping with depression, they're doing all this actual scientific research that's finally proving all these benefits that responsible psychedelic usage could create, right? And I'm not sitting here trying to like advocate for psychedelics, but what I can tell you is, and I'll get into like, you know, my story. It was a instrumental puzzle piece in my story that helped open my mind up to more than what I've always known to be my reality. And it's interesting again because, you know, we just spoke about cognitive dissonance and the backfire effect, and there's a lot of people that are close to me that tend to have that effect when speaking about something that has the stigma that psychedelics does. But one thing that personally, when it comes to like my personal authenticity, is I never want to. I don't want to not speak about something that isn't my truth just because of how others. I'm very much an advocate of not changing what's true to me because of the way others perceive it. And the reality is, it was an important part of my truth in my story. So it's an interesting topic to bring up publicly. So my story. So yeah, I've been in direct sales 13, 14 years, and I for a long time, I was in this cloud of, I moved up to New York City, and for like 6 years I was up there, and man, the culture of partying in New York is like nothing I've ever known. I was partying 5, 6 days a week, super hardcore. I always did pretty well in sales, but I was spending every ounce of my money on just partying. And I got wrapped up in this cycle of literally binge drinking multiple times a week. And it's interesting how it kind of starts to creep up on you and you don't realize, or at least you start to consistently make excuses and convince yourself that you don't have an issue, even if you really do. And if you look at if I started to take a look at my life, and any of my major issues in some way were tied to my drinking. It was. And I did, as the years went on, this was way before like psychedelics or anything, or really my study on the mind and how I really jumped into it and became passionate about it. But I looked into society's ways, and man, society, it blew my mind how nothing worked and how everything was just so like, we said ass backwards. I literally, this was years ago, just self-admittedly put myself into an outpatient clinic to figure out how to stop drinking. It's not that I know, just to be clear, my type of drinking, I didn't need it every day. There's different kinds. Mine was, if I have 2 or 3 drinks, I'm going to end up having 20. We're going to have a crazy night out. Who knows where I'm going to end up, and I'm going to end up buying shots for everyone on the town, and it's just going to be a not great after effect, right? That was my,
like,
what's that?
Like reckless. Pretty much.
Totally reckless. And I will forever be partially jealous of the people that can go and have a few drinks and then just have a calm night. Now, I'm very much an extrovert and very much an extremist, which I've, interestingly enough, have learned how to accept that, not change that, and gear it towards positive, impactful things, which is another thing about addiction that should be looked upon differently. You can't change it, but you can direct it. Anyway, I tried all of society's ways, and it's so interesting how wrong it is. The outpatient clinic, and I don't want to say they're bad people. They're not bad people at all. They go about it wrong. Like they're these people that would sit there and they would be like, well, I've read this about addiction, so let me tell you how to fix it, even though they've never dealt with addiction themselves. They've never dealt with binge drinking themselves. They would sit there and they would tell me, okay, David, you need to not go down any alleyway that has liquor. You need to not have any alcohol in your house. You need to change all your friends. And I'm like, well, that sucks. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be that guy that you can't have alcohol around. Like that just seemed weird to me. And it just didn't work because that's all external. There's this, I don't believe how this is like a thing. There's a pill you can get. They said, okay, well here, take this pill every morning. So then if you drink, you'll throw up.
What?
No, it's a thing. It's completely ridiculous. But they would be like, here.
I don't mean to laugh at that because like I don't want to
it's ridiculous.
People that are doing that, but it's like at the same time, like for real, I just like all the solutions that you're saying right now that they're giving you, to me, it just does not address the problem at all.
It doesn't. Thank you.
Just like pharmaceuticals. It's the concept.
100%.
It's like, oh, you're, feeling like, oh, you get bladder infections every month, take antibiotics. Wait, why don't we figure out why you're getting bladder infections every month instead of just giving you antibiotics?
Yeah. So, I mean, when it got to a point where I was trying to like seek society's ways now because I didn't know what the hell else to do at the time. And I was like, man, this is ridiculous. If I want to have a drink, I'm going to have a drink. I won't take your stupid pill in the morning. Like I don't, if I could take a pill every morning and be fine, then I just wouldn't drink every day. Like it doesn't take away the internal. It's like, and I didn't want to change my friends. I had good friends. And I didn't want to be that guy. Like it didn't flow with me. And I even tried freaking AA. And again, I want to make it clear that I'm not trashing it at all, because there are some people that it works for. I think the ratio is like 6% of people, by the way. But I'm just saying there are some people it works for, which is fine. But I went there and man, it's everyone focusing and just talking about drinking. Like literally, one of the counselors like, yeah, you should go to AA about 4 or 5 times a week. I'm like, 4 or 5 times a week for an hour and a half, I'm going to sit around and talk about drinking and not. That's like saying, okay, Ashley, you need to stop thinking about a pink elephant. So I want you for 5 meetings a week to go sit down and talk about not thinking about a pink elephant.
Yeah.
Can you do that? I'm like, so I went there and I'm just like, I left. I'm like, I want to go hit the bar. This is horrible. This is depressing. Like it was just nothing was working. And it was frustrating. And it wasn't, again, it wasn't something like I needed it. I just digging in deeper. And this is where psychedelics came into play. So, and you know, this kind of goes into,
It's
not
like
to jump in.
it's a taboo, right? Especially for addicts, because it's
Oh
like,
yeah.
oh, you shouldn't dabble in the world of any substance. But
Because
then
you're an
like
addict, you'll get addicted to that.
psychedelics, I feel like are almost in a league of their own because there hasn't been a ton of research done, but there's a lot of emerging research. And like
Yes.
psilocybin mushrooms, for example, are shown to be non-addictive and actually help with addiction. So it's like I feel like we need to educate people better on psychedelics and what they actually are instead of going back to the war on drugs and everything's a Schedule 1 substance and everything is highly addictive and non-medicinal.
Sure. I totally agree with that. That education is key. People have to be open to education too. You know, the severed part of my family was not open to any kind of education to it. So, you know, once I and it, I, so I heard about psychedelics, and you know, Alan Watts. Have you heard of Alan Watts?
Yes.
So I watched one of his videos, and it changed my life. It was the video talking about life being, you know, it's not about the destination. It was just this incredible video, and I was super drawn to it. And I was like, interesting. And then it brought up all these psychedelic videos, and I started looking. I'm like, oh, what is this? Then I Googled. I started finding about Burning Man, and I was like, what is this world? Then I went to like some of the meetups, and I was so intrigued. And then I heard about psychedelics, and I'm a total nerd, so I like Google it. I'm looking this stuff up. I'm like, oh, interesting. And I was like, you know, I've never been a big like drinking's literally been my only vice. Now, granted, I did dabble in other reckless things that I shouldn't have when I was in New York, but it was never a vice of mine. My vice was literally alcohol, right? And then I started experimenting lightly with mushrooms and then LSD. LSD was the incredibly profound, otherworldly, like, it's hard for me to put into words. All my senses super heightened. My mind, I started looking, I could sit back, analyze my problem, look at my problem, and I saw this, it's like my mind connected in different ways and I could see it from a different perspective. So I saw answers from a different perspective. And in one of these really powerful, profound trips, it was like, the reason I'm drinking is because it's an escape, because I'm actually unhappy with my life. And that came to me powerfully, powerfully during a trip. And then, and at that point, it was like it's so hard to explain with these trips. But I did start experimenting with it, and it's not like I quit overnight. That puzzle piece was incredibly essential for me, and then I never went to one other society-based thing for drinking, and then I
So real quick,
exper
did you do like microdosing or did you take
no,
like larger doses? Like
yeah.
how much did you take?
So I experimented with the mushrooms a little bit. Mushrooms were not my profound for one reason or another. It was probably 300 to 400 micrograms of LSD. I tried that.
So you took a
So
lot.
I went down. Like I said, extremist, right? But it was very powerfully positive for me. And here's the thing: it's hard for people to understand because I know, at least on my side, there's people that will hear this, and it's very hard to understand that because people that judge or they judge out of fear, you know, fear of because people fear what they don't understand. You
Mhm.
know, they fear what they don't understand, and there's a lot of propaganda and stigma around psychedelics. And I can tell you, just in my experience, it wasn't the thing that got me over drinking. I'll talk about that in a second, but that was just a little instrumental puzzle piece that opened my mind up. And with the
Sure.
family thing, not to dig too much into that, but you know, my father, he was my mentor, my best friend for over 20 years. And he saw that I was guessing a Burning Man group or something. So he asked me, he's like, are you experimenting with psychedelics? And after this trip, I don't know, I had this deep sense of authenticity. Like, I don't want to lie. My old self, I would have been like, no, blah, 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 I let it go. But I wanted to be honest because I was so excited about the profound and the new like mindset that I was creating. So I guess made the mistake, or made the, you know, whether it's a mistake or not, I was honest. I was like, yes. And it's been great for me. And it was a shitstorm after that. He hasn't spoke to me now for like 3 years. He told the rest of my family that I'm like addicted to psychedelics, which is actually a scientific impossibility. It was just a lot of back and forth, and I was like, I was just trying to be honest. I'm like, yes, it's nothing, but it's been so powerful for me. And now I haven't drank for years, and that was a little essential piece to it. But it doesn't matter when people make that decision and they can only think in one way, and they are not open to being wrong in any other way, shape, or form. There's no going back, and it's a very unfortunate thing, and it's something that it's something that I've had to grow from. One of the things, again, not to go off on a tangent, but when you talk about healing and dealing with things in your life that are tough, I had to do a lot of deep self-reflection on forgiveness. I had to it wasn't until about a year ago, after 2 years into this, that I had to within myself. The hardest thing to do is forgive someone that doesn't want to be forgiven for your own healing. And I had to do that for someone that was the most important, one of the, if not the most important part of my life for so long.
So he still hasn't talked, like you guys haven't talked and
Not only that, some of my family has stuck with me, and I speak to them, and my aunt, my cousins, they're amazing people, very non-judgmental, open people. I still talk with them, but I mean, they even tell me he's still just right. Half my family won't talk to me because he went to them and said that I'm down this crazy path and addicted to psychedelics, even though, and I'm not trying to brag whatsoever, since all that, I've literally gotten married, bought a house, started a business, and it's been running great.
I mean, that's
and the most important thing, I'm sorry, yeah, I freaking stopped drinking. I've been sober for years, besides all of that, but none of that matters because
people develop a narrative, and
yeah,
it's interesting.
yeah.
We have some friends that we were close friends with years ago, and we saw them once last year, just kind of like one of these things where we hadn't seen them in years, and let's just hang out kind of spontaneously. It's been a while, let's catch up. And my husband was going through a really hard time at that time, and he just gotten diagnosed with Lyme disease, and
Oh,
he
no.
has rage and all these things. And we were getting together with these people. They're generally pretty darn conservative. And
Yeah.
I was opening up about Dan and, his suicidal ideation and Lyme disease and his rage, and how psychedelics, all this promising research is being done, how we're interested, and all this stuff. And we actually never saw those people again after that day. And my husband got together with one of them recently, got together with the guy, and they had a very open and honest conversation. And basically, that couple thought that we were going down the deep end. We were just getting addicted to drugs, about
Right.
suicide, and, that we're bad news, and we're just going down the rabbit hole. And I was like, so funny, because I'm sitting here like, okay, so in the last year, I've changed my diet. I've removed all these options. I've removed addictions. I've started doing all these things. My husband
Doesn't matter. You fall into the stigma.
you mention the word psychedelics or any sort of controversial thing like
It
that,
all goes out the window.
you're a fucking demon. You're a drug addict on the side of the road.
Yeah.
Fucking up. You're lost in life. You don't
Oh
know what you're
gosh.
doing. And it's very interesting. And what you said about the trip that you had, this is the way I describe it. I think I'm on your wavelength. When I took LSD, it was even in the days and weeks after, it was I would get an impulse to partake in something that was probably a negative decision or an action. Right after I got the impulse to do that, to judge somebody, to eat something I shouldn't, whatever, it was almost like this voice of truth followed, you're actually doing it because of this, and it's probably wise that you don't. And it's
Yes.
everything connected with every single, almost every single action that I did. And I could see myself out of my ego and why I was doing what I was doing. And it helped me course correct. They say with psychedelics, the work is actually in the weeks after, not so much in the
Yes.
moment.
Yes. Man, I became so self-aware, and then, that was the puzzle piece. I will say what actually did it for me, is, my wife, incredible person, soulmate. I mean, it's just on another level. I've never known anything like that. And then what it led to was this really beautiful relationship with my creator, with God. Literally, I have this, and I never had that all my life. In fact, what's crazy is I remember talking to Megan, my wife, and one night I was like, I think I'm too logical for a God. which is crazy now. But I remember telling her that. I'm like, I gotta know. How do you actually know there's a God? And everything in my life changed after that. I mean, I wouldn't, if I didn't experience it, it would be hard for me to believe it. But everything changed, and it just led to this beautiful relationship with my creator, and like figuring out, asking deep questions within myself, and messages. And I know this is going to sound crazy and metaphysical, but I'm just telling, like, messages, thoughts, like, you're supposed to do this. You're supposed to, you have this ability to connect with people. You're supposed to be helping people. And I never thought any of this stuff before. It's like, where is all this coming from? And then I started like getting into prayer. Then I started reading the Bible, which I think, the Bible gets a lot of flack, but it's not literal. People take it literal. It's just metaphors, and there's actual, like, it's parables and stuff like that, and that's a whole nother thing. But I started doing this deep.
Do you know about Jordan Peterson? Like, are you familiar with Jordan Peterson? So he does this like 12-part biblical series analysis, which is amazing. I just thought of what you said. The Bible's very like a lot of metaphors.
Yeah.
Because, it's like people take it very literally, like this is exactly what happened and everything. But in reality, you can pick it apart, and it's so powerful.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's, I just thought of that. So.
Yeah, no, 100%. So it led to that. And then it led to this deep, deep growth within me, and being like, there's something so much greater than myself going on. And there's something that's so much more important than just me. Most of my life, the most important thing to me was me. My gratification, what I wanted in the moment, what was happening, what my short term, whatever it was. There's something so much more important to me than just me now. And it's been a and again, I'm not trying to, because I know people struggle with drinking. I know people struggle with addiction, because I'm not trying to downplay that at all. But in my experience now, it has been a breeze not drinking. I'm around it whenever, like our engagement party, everyone was hammered, and I'm totally fine. These people in that freaking clinic were like, you're never going to be able to be around it. You have to go and spend 4 or 5 days your week of the rest of your life in AA meetings. Like, this is complete bullshit. Like, what they're missing is this power we have with it deep within us to make changes and actively reprogram our minds. I did a lot of meditation. I did a lot of writing. I did a lot of deep introspection. The psychedelics were an instrumental puzzle piece. I'm sorry, they just were. For people that don't like to hear that, that's just my truth and my reality. It wasn't the thing. The thing was my wife and my relationship with God. But psychedelics were that little piece that really got my mind just looking at things so differently that I don't understand how I ever could have looked at them in that way. It was just a whole shift in perspective and just connectedness. But it just led down this crazy path of like empowerment and purpose, and me realizing what my purpose is, my personal purpose in life. I'm here to develop and empower people and help people and live a life of service. That's literally what I'm supposed to be doing. And it's just been a crazy path that way. But nothing society. I don't, there's a guy named James Hadlock that's doing some incredible work with addiction. He's the one guy, well, him and Sean Casey. Sean Casey has a book called The Gift of Addiction. And James Hadlock's doing keynote speaking all around the country, because he had a similar experience with overcoming his addiction, because they're the only two people I know that are going about addiction the right way and making changes the right way. Society has it so wrong right now. And, one of the good things I like that Sean Casey talks about, it's so true, is that they try and tell you, get rid of your addiction. You need to get rid of this. You need to accept that as part of who you are. Like you said earlier, like, you can't stop. That's just a part of who you are. Accept it. But what I can do,
channel it differently,
100%,
and different activity.
Channel it into marriage, channel it into your marriage, channel it into your business, channel it into active service to genuinely help other people, channel it into health and physical fit. Like he has a book called Gift of Addiction. And like, literally, I see it now as a gift, which is so ass backwards than what society does. There's such a stigma. And these people that have addictions, they're people, they're souls, they have a purpose, and they could be freaking great if they are just switch their mindset and not feel like they're in this trap. The worst thing I feel like on a mindset standpoint a human can feel is trapped. That's when things get scary.
Yep.
Like, if you feel trapped, that's when things get scary, because you don't feel like there's a way out. And if anyone's listening to this or anyone knows anyone dealing with that, there's a way out. There's always a way out, and it's a healthy, good way that involves being on this earth and, doing good things for yourself and other people, and I'm super passionate about that because I feel like that's a huge hindrance nowadays. Is it's gone about so wrong, and there's so many people struggling and not knowing how to get out of it.
Have you yeah, I'm just like I'm sinking in your story. It's so crazy that I feel like your story is very powerful because like what you said, there are people that, there are some people out there, they love AA, right? Like 6%, whatever you said, like it works for them or whatever.
Yeah,
Or other, rehab facilities, like it works for some people. So it's like we can't knock on
absolutely.
that. But your story is very powerful because there are lots of people I think that don't feel like they fit into a system. It's like they feel like they're not
Hmm.
understood. And I've not directly, but I've felt this because I haven't had an addiction to alcohol or substance, but I really relate to how you've felt with that whole systemic idea of like you can't do this, this, and this with the Western medical system of like when I would have anxiety problems. Like I remember I was just starting to get into anxiety and just understanding what it was, and I went to my doctor and I was telling her like I have all of, and this was back when I went to my doctor just, for anything. And I don't do that anymore unless I'm literally dying. I pretty much treat myself because I don't really get sick anymore because I try to take care of my immune system. But I went to my doctor and I was like having these thoughts, like I'm uncomfortable, feeling like I'm focusing on my health a lot. I feel like, I fixate on my heart rate. I don't feel good. I feel scared a lot. I feel trapped a lot. She writes me a prescription for Xanax and sends me on my way. Didn't take it, but it's like, boom, let me listen to you for 5 minutes, write your prescription and send you on your way. And I got so fed up with that because I'm like, there's nobody here to listen to me. There's nobody here to like help me figure this out. That's when I went to counseling, and that's obviously a better platform for it, but it's very similar to what you're talking about with addiction and these systems of just like almost like an assembly line of sending kind of like, it's like I'm sure some care. This is what I wanted to talk to you about. This is insane. So I was doing some you're gonna love this. You're gonna love this. So
I'm excited.
I was doing some research last night. So what's his name? I wrote it down. Johan Hari. Have you heard of him?
No.
So he did a TED talk. So he talks about this research. I took some notes, so I may reference them. So he is another one that you're going to want to talk to because he just believes that addicts are like shamed. We want them to suffer because we think that will incentivize them to change, right? We just
Hmm.
want to shame them. We want them to just feel like pieces of shit.
Hmm.
And we also think that chemicals are the cause of a lot of things. Like, you just give people heroin, everybody's going to get addicted. You give people, opioids, everybody's going to get addicted. That's not true because not everybody comes out of surgery a drug addict, but some people do. So
Correct.
what they did, so he actually talked to Bruce Alexander. He's a Canadian psychologist. He so there were studies done in the early 20th century, and what they did was they put a rat in a cage.
I love this. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Go
So
for it. I love this.
they put a rat in a cage with drug laced water. So I believe it was like morphine or cocaine, and then regular water. And then the rat um, always went to the drug laced water, and then it basically killed itself really quickly. And they made the conclusion from that it's just a chemical thing, right? You're gonna the rat wants to drink the water. He's gonna get addicted. He's gonna kill himself, and that's the cause of addiction. Then Bruce Alexander came along in, I believe it was this. I think it was early 20s. Um, I don't know if he did this. I think he did. Bruce Alexander. Somebody would have to fact check me on that, but he did something called the rat park experiment. So what he did was he was like, okay, so this rat's always in solitary confinement. Like this rat's by himself in this little cage with like nothing. What if we made this rat utopia? So what he did was he made this crazy rat park. So the rats had tunnels, they had wheels, they had colorful bowls, they had unlimited amounts of cheese. They could have sex whenever they wanted. They had all their
Yep.
little rat friends. And they
Yep.
put the two bowls of water there still. And what they found was the rats did not like the drug water. They did not prefer it. They did not use it compulsively, and 0% overdosed on it. So, what they found from that is like you have one experiment that pretty much has 100% overdose rate. Now, when the rats are happy, they're connected, they have, love and all these things, all of a sudden now there's zero overdose. That was amazing. Huffington Post actually wrote an article. I don't know when it was. This is what I was going to tell you that you'll like. Huffington Post wrote an article about this concept, and that's how I found it. Actually, I wish I knew the time frame, but they wrote an article and it was like addiction is all wrong. We got it all wrong. It's about lack of connection. Addicts.
Key to addiction is connection. That's a great one.
Connection, because we want to bond. So this guy Johan Hari was talking about, he actually wants to call it bonding instead of addiction, like a relationship with bonding. Ooh. Because us humans, we want to bond. That's just our nature. So when people find that they have an inability to bond with other humans, they actually bond to substances that provide them relief. So why don't some people find themselves in addictions? Because they have relationships, they have people that they love, they want to be present in their life. When people don't feel like they can be present or they want to be present because of the pain, they'll latch on to that substance that gives them relief. And so the Huffington Post wrote an article about this, and I was like, wow, this is really interesting. Then I did a Google search on it. I found all of this propaganda from addiction centers writing articles debunking
because it's freaking money.
The Huffington Post. Oh. And it's very similar to me. I was thinking, I'm like, why are hospitals advertised? Why are like addiction centers advertised? I mean, I get the addiction center somewhat, but there's like light on my face trying to fix it. But it was so interesting to me because like I was reading these articles from these addiction centers, like the Huffington Post article. Huffington Post just released this article. It's so wrong. There's like exclamation marks everywhere, and I'm like, okay, dude, when you're
emotion,
and they're like, and they were making some claims like addiction can never be cured. You should always know that addiction can never be cured. And I'm like sitting there like, you have these people that are in very weak, vulnerable places in their lives that can read that and they'll latch on to that because
they will. And that's what gets scary.
That's what I'm saying. And it's like, fuck. Like I was like, really? Like that's what opened my eyes, because I was like reading about this rat park experiment. They also talked about, have you heard about Vietnam? The relation to Vietnam? So when they were doing this rat park experiment, they were talking about how, okay, maybe this is just rats, maybe this isn't humans, like maybe we're different from rats, like we don't know. But then they observed the Vietnam War, and 20% of the Vietnam vets actually did heroin or cocaine. So what happened was they were getting all worried, like, oh my gosh, all these people are going to come back from war and there's going to be addicts all over the place. Like, people are going to be overdosing, withdrawing and stuff. But what was insane is that when they came back, 95% of people stopped. No withdrawals or anything. And, I didn't really read past that, but my intuitive thought is like the connection that they formed, the bonds that they formed there with all of their soldiers and their community. When they came back, I believe it was, what was it? The Archives of General Psychiatry, they followed these people home. Yeah. And 95% of them stopped. So it's
absolutely.
Like, the concept is like, what if addiction is about your cage, the cage that you have around you, the cage that you put around you, the cage that maybe was put around you out of your control, maybe as a child, but now you have to get out of that. I mean, this cage, like this tightly knit cage. And to speak on what I was saying earlier, I have rid my life of so many little addictions that I feel like I held. Like I don't drink. I'm not reliant on any substance. I don't use any medication. I've really honed in on my addiction around food. Just lots of little impulses. I've really watched myself over the past year. And as those have been removed from my life, I now see a big underlying problem is my lack of connection and what I feel like is an inability to connect with people. And I feel like that has been driving all of these patterns that I never really wanted, but they've been keeping me afloat. Yeah,
that's amazing. First off, on the rat thing, yeah, I love that. And it's funny because I have the study up here. I was going to mention that too. That's right on point, because all of these addiction centers, they're based they're basing it off the studies on the rats when they don't put the other rats with other rats. So that's such a powerful point. And I love that you've done that. That's actually funny. That's why one of my challenges was the 3-day fast, literally because I saw you do the 3-day fast. But I like what you said on that. One of the things that I've also tried to do is remove all my attachments, like have nothing control me. Food is a big one too for me, which is why I did that fast. I wanted to prove to myself that I could do the fast. We are, my wife and I follow the medical medium. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but we're here every morning. Every morning, she has, man, it's my wife. She has severe gluten, dairy, soy intolerance. Always had a ton of issues with that stuff. So this has been an incredible diet for her. We've tried everything. So she has a lot of gut stuff. So that's been great for her. But yeah, I've tried to eliminate anything that has an attachment. And it's crazy how self-aware you can become when you start to do that, because so many people, so much of society is run. They let other things control their lives, whether it's technology, whether it's food, whether it's, whatever addiction, there's, public and there's private addictions, people want to admit it or not, that it's what's happening. So that's awesome that you've done that. It's powerful self-awareness.
Yeah. I was actually doing some research on, I was thinking like, how could we change the game here for addiction, right? It's like, what can we do differently? And I found that, have you heard about Portugal, what they've done? Have you?
Oh yes, reintroducing
Right?
people back into like group settings and societies and stuff like that. There's some kind of program, right?
Yeah, so what they did, and I believe it was 2000 or 2001, they had like 1% of their population addicted to heroin. So like that's an insane number. So they had like about 1% of the population, and they were pretty much doing everything that we do here. It's like, you criminalize people, you shame them, you just tell them they can't do this, this, and this, or else like they're a bad person. Just all this stuff that we do.
Right.
Um, and they finally said like, okay, we're gonna try to do the opposite, and see what happens. So what they did was they basically decriminalized um, pretty much low level drug possession, and they decriminalized the use of all drugs. So that's not, so I actually looked, because I didn't know the difference. I looked up decriminalization versus legalization. So the difference would be that you may still get a fine or something, if you're using a drug, but you're not going to go to jail, you're not going to get arrested, you're not going to have a record and things like that. So they did that, and not only that, but they took the money that they were using for all the criminal action around drug use, and they put it towards these like really intense rehabilitation systems for addicts. So what they did was they would help them get jobs, they would pay for certain wages, they would help reintroduce them back into society, help them reconnect with society, help them build relationships and things. And then 15 years after that, 50% of overdose and drug use was down. 50%.
Unreal. That stuff needs to get more public though. Like, the powers to be or whatever don't want to see that, because what's that gonna do? That's gonna be less money in the system. I mean, that's awesome. I absolutely love that. Yeah.
Well, and they talked to the addicts, and they asked them, the recovering addicts, and they were like, what was your experience? And pretty much across the board, they said, because like in their journey of rediscovering their purpose, they've had no impulses to drink, no impulses to use, no impulses to, and it's very similar to your story where it's like,
None. I know this sounds crazy, but literally none. I can be all around it. And they're like, you can never be around it. People can be taking shots next to me. I don't care. Like it's deep within us change that you can make because you're satisfied. You're satisfied.
It
You don't
comes
need it.
down to being, it so comes down to being satisfied. It's
Yeah.
such a simple concept. And I feel like the problem, and I'm hesitant when I make these, I don't want to make harsh statements like you're saying, because it's like
Absolutes. Yeah.
I'm not an addict, right? Like, and I'm still a people pleaser. Like I'm still afraid to offend people. Like, I'm coming out of my shell, so I don't want to make these like harsh statements. But um I feel like a lot of these systems that are put in place for addiction, they don't help the narrative, because you see people walking, it's like, it's almost like if someone has walked around for 20, 30, 40 years with the narrative that they're an addict, um you know and they just, I'm an addict, I'm an addict, I'm an addict. It's really easy to just get wrapped up in that. And then the things that you're told, like you're never going to be able to be around people that drink, you know,
Yep.
you're like, and all these things, if you're told that at a very weak and vulnerable state in your life, you're going to absorb that in, take that in, and
And
then
then
you're
you're going to program in your subconscious too.
programming it into your subconscious, and then you're going to run with it. And then you go by these guidelines, and then it's really hard if you have those guidelines in your head for decades to reprogram, like you were just saying, like even with the psychedelic use, it's like, tell somebody that's kind of an older generation that's been an addict for 40 years to use a psychedelic to reprogram. It's like, no, no,
Yeah.
why would I do that?
Right.
but
Right.
but when in reality it could be helpful.
And listen to how like backwards this is, not to jump back, but my dad, one of the last conversations we had was I was like, you can't be addicted to psychedelics. Look, I've just, I've experimented with it. It's been really positive for me. He's like, you're saying the same exact thing that a heroin addict says.
Oh jeez.
I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so many things wrong with that statement, from not even an emotional and logical scientific basis. Everything about that's wrong. But you can't tell someone with cognitive dissonance that.
Well,
But no, you're right.
they don't want to look at facts. See,
No.
like you, I'm an advocate of, you know, it's not the tool. Like that's why
No.
I'm not
Right.
against guns. You know, I'm not against. It's like you can make homemade weapons that
Right.
can be worse than a gun if you
It
really
comes
want to.
down to the choice and how is it impacting you? How is it affecting you?
Exactly. Well, it's down to
What
the
is it used
action
for?
behind it, right? So
Right.
I feel like you can be addicted to anything. You can be addicted to
I
psychedelics. You
totally.
don't have a chemical addiction with
Right.
psychedelics. You can have a psychological addiction where
Yep.
if you feel like using mushrooms every single day and you can't survive without them, then you got to go within and figure out why the hell you want to use mushrooms every single
Right.
day. But it's not the mushrooms that are causing you to do it,
Right.
you
Exactly.
know?
Yep. Yeah.
And there's
100%.
just a huge disconnect that I'm even weary. Like I'm better with telling people that I've used psychedelics or I support psychedelics, but I'm still weary of like who I say that to, because you just
Yeah, there's
never
such
know.
a stigma. Like it's crazy how much, even like the family that like is, we still talk and we're still totally fine, are still like, they're still very like anti psychedelic, but they just trust me. They know that I'm like doing great and all that, so they know there's some kind of, they don't understand it, but they're accepting,
Well, even
which
whenever
is
you ask why, and then like, why are you against it? And a lot of people, they can't really answer. It's just because it's bad, or because I was told so,
and then they
or
also look up information that will will support what they already think. So
yeah.
like if they think something, they're going to Google blah 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 exactly what I think, and then of course you can search. There's aliens inside the Earth, and you're going to find articles saying there are aliens inside the Earth. Like you can search anything to like support your own argument. But like it's literally my personal experience, and if there was a problem, it would probably be pretty evident right now.
Well, yeah, you have to look at like it's very hard to find reliable research these days.
Yeah, yeah,
That's why I
yeah,
feel like it's
yeah.
important to know what propaganda, like, well, first of all,
Yes.
know that propaganda exists. I feel like some people don't know that propaganda exists. Like, I feel like there are some people still operating in a space
Oh,
that believe
news.
just believe what is being put out there,
Let's
and
see
like,
what's really happening around the world. Let's go to the news.
I know. So, first of all, it's understanding that propaganda does exist. Like,
Yeah.
that's the first step. And then being able to decipher, what's propaganda, what's rooted in emotion, what's rooted in agenda versus what is factual, because sometimes it's tricky. You can have these articles that look factual, they have doctors' names on them, they have these like kind of buzzwords thrown around, and you're like, oh, this looks good, but then there's no real backing behind it.
Right.
But then you have like these I was thinking about it today because I knew we were going to talk about addiction, like the whole war on drugs campaign that Nixon kind of started, but then Reagan kind of took over, and the whole just say no. And I was like thinking about that statement. I'm like, okay, so you're just telling people just say no. Like, how ridiculous is that? Because you have all of these complicated emotions, complicated life struggles and experiences that cause people to do drugs. And then you literally have a national leader saying, just say no.
I know.
I mean, it's like it's so ridiculous.
It's just it's unrealistic, and it's completely unattached to the human part of life. Like,
Yes.
there's so many things going on outside of that, and I think it, like you said, it all comes back to connection, understanding people, and genuine connection, and being authentic. It's education against abstinence. Like, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's not, it's the concept of understanding that you like you just said it, bringing the human component to things,
Yeah.
bringing the human understanding that we're human and things are not just black and white. You can't slap a just say no on top of, you know, such deep emotions and deep problems. You can't just
Right.
slap something on it. And I feel like a lot of people are just quick to like slap something on something that they don't understand and something that they fear, like you were talking about. But it's so powerful.
Yeah, yeah. Just because it's called a drug, it's a drug. Even though opioids and prescribed drugs do a million times more damage than, um, illegal drugs out there. So it's
Well, I used to think it was genes. I used to think it was like, okay, so not everybody's going to get addicted to, opioids, or not everybody's going to get addicted to heroin, not everybody's going to get addicted to alcohol, because some people can drink it, like you were saying, like, some
yep.
people can drink it just fine. So I was always like, okay, so it's just genes. And I haven't looked enough into that to say whether I completely agree with that or disagree with that. But I mean, I'm willing to put it on the table. I think that it makes sense that there's a genetic component because
But I do feel there's a genetic component. There definitely, at least it's obviously there's no absolutes. Like, this is definitely what everything is, but I think there's definitely a genetic component. Genetic component. I can agree to that for sure.
but then I was going to say, on top of that, what's interesting is that I saw a study done one time that they say 95% of your outcome in life is dependent on your lifestyle, not your genes. So your genes only control 5% of what's actually going on in your body, and your lifestyle
Interesting.
is going to turn your genes on or off. So if you have a shit lifestyle, if you don't sleep, if you
Interesting.
eat like crap, if you don't drink water, if you have a ton of stress, if you don't take care of yourself, you don't exercise, you are probably going to turn a lot of your um, genes that you are predisposed to on. So you're going to get more chronic illness. Like if you, so it's the concept of like, let's just say I have a gene, like I believe I have a gene for colon cancer. Both of my grandmas had it. My parents have had like polyps. Like I feel like I have a gene for colon cancer. Now it's my responsibility to understand that I have it and then make choices so that that gene likely does not get turned on, because
Mhm.
and we have they've shown 95% control of that system with our lifestyle, which is amazing.
Wow.
So that's why,
Like, one of the biggest components is food, probably.
absolutely, and that's why I'm I get I get a little I get judgmental and I get critical of people when, you know, they get these terrible chronic illnesses and they feel like they can't do anything about it, because I'm like, I'm actually having a guy on the podcast next week, next Wednesday. He completely cured himself of cancer 100% naturally
Wow.
with green juice. Okay, green juice and
Amazing.
lots of other remedies. He completely cured himself. And I've never had cancer, so I don't want to be the person to say, oh God, like, can't believe you did this, to people that have cancer. But it makes me sad when people get cancer or other illnesses and they throw their hands up like, oh, poor me, like I'm going to die. And I get pissed off at the system that doesn't educate, the oncology system that tells people that they are going to die if they don't do X, Y, and Z, for cancer treatment or other treatments. And you have all these success stories of people that are curing themselves. Like I
Hmm.
feel like it always goes back into radical self responsibility.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
So
Take that word. You got it. Run with it.
I'm running with it, man. I'm running with that radical
I
self-responsibility.
love it. No, I love it.
Oh, this was awesome. Wow, we've been at this for almost 2 hours.
I
I
know.
loved talking about this stuff. Shoot, I can go on and on and on, but I think we should probably wrap this up. Is there anything you wanted to add that we maybe didn't talk about? Parting words, how people can find you, any last words?
Yeah. So, I mean, on Instagram, I haven't self-admittedly running. I run an ADT dealership, so I use the platform to teach people from any socioeconomic background, mindful sales, which is just empowering your mindset and genuine connection with people, genuinely how to connect with people. So I haven't been able to be as big on social media as I was last year, but really just my Instagram. Feel free to follow me there. I'm going to be putting out a lot more content. I'm creating a YouTube channel that's just about finalized on mindful sales. I'll be literally putting every one of my clinics up there, what I teach people about how to connect with people, how to influence people, all that good stuff. And the only thing I would add is, you know, if anyone's listening to this, this is all my personal belief, my personal opinion, but there's not really any coincidence. I think we're all having this conversation for a reason. I think every single one of you out there, Ashley, you got an incredible purpose. You have an incredible gift. I think every soul has a purpose. We've all been given certain gifts that are, if utilized within our purpose, can bring us the exact life we want, as well as making the world better for everyone. And, you know, it's my personal belief that there is just something beautiful inside all of us that loves us, that wants the absolute best for us, but gives us the ability to make the decisions that we want to make. And I've found that I've become much more of a vessel than an actual person doing things in recent months and this past year. And yeah, just know that everyone listening to this has a purpose and has a reason for being here, and you are in control, and you can make whatever changes you want to make with enough work and with enough dedication. So I appreciate you bringing me on here. I've had an awesome talk with you, and I look forward to continuing to follow and see who you bring on next.
Awesome. And I think everybody should take control and take radical self-responsibility. I love
Yes.
that. Seriously, I
Awesome.
mean that, because if we all took self-responsibility and asked ourselves why, I feel like we could get to so many answers, and your story has proven that today. I thank you for sharing that with me and with all of us, and we've had a decent amount of viewers. I don't know if the chat worked. I hope I didn't miss anybody. We'll see. But thank you so much for sharing your story, and shoot, I'm sure we'll do another one of these in the future, as you know, we both kind of find our purpose more and more, grow our platforms, kind of figure it out.
Sounds great. Yeah, actually, on a real quick side note, I'll shoot you. My wife has an incredible story too. She dealt with a lot of trauma growing up and a lot of issues, and she's overcome so much crazy stuff too. So she'd have a heck of a story too. But that's on another note.
Yeah, absolutely. Send me your information.
Will do. Will do. You have a great rest of your day, Ashley.
Cool. I'm going to stop the broadcast, and then you and I can keep talking.
Cool.
Give me a sec. I am going off live. Thank you for everybody who listened.